Teacher training video 2 on literacy rotations. We're looking at setting up literacy stations and the importance of the different stations and what value they have in linking to the Australian curriculum. So linking up your different stations. So we're going to be looking at word knowledge, grammar knowledge, visual knowledge, comprehending, composing. Now all these different elements are all part of the Australian curriculum in the different areas of literacy that we're going to be looking at. So let me just fix this up for you. So here are the different key ideas. So we're going to look at text knowledge, visual knowledge, word knowledge, grammatical knowledge, and we're going to be doing this through listening, reading and viewing, and through speaking, writing and creating when it comes to composing and comprehending. Now I'm going to show you how you can set up 5 different stations that address all of these needs, as well as going over to your Australian curriculum and linking up to your achievement standards and the different learning continuums. So this is going to depend on what year level you have, and this will depend on the different activities. So you're going to make sure that you need to adjust to the different learning areas inside of literacy and what are the different achievement standards that are expected for that level and how you're going to be exposing them. So let's have a little look back here. So what we're going to be doing is I have 5 different stations, and in each of my groups I like to have at least 4 students or more, and I like to have my students at their age ability, and I roughly stick it to where they are for their spelling. Now the reason I do that is one of the spelling stations is this is the group that I like to spend the time with, while all the other groups will either have an adult with a parent helper or they'll be working independently. So with the spelling activity, I like to look and introduce and spend time with the students in small groups with looking at their spelling words for each week. I also have a matrix of activities, which is basically the homework matrix. So I spend time with the students making sure they understand the concepts. I set activities where the students actually explore the different spelling words and the word families they're looking at. I let the students actually play and investigate the sound and letter combinations. We look at the different meanings of the words and inside context. So this is where I spend a lot of my one-on-one and get some good group time. I get some great observations and some evidence for their learning as well. But this is the actual station that I like to spend the most time on, and I combine it and link it into my homework so I can keep my finger on the pulse with as far as their growth and development. Now inside this group, once they go up and down the different spelling groups, if they you'll find as you assess the different students, they will actually grow and jump up and down. I tend to evaluate them twice a term. They'll go up and down inside their groups. So this is where they will go and monitor. So if they're in yellow group and perhaps this is a group that has some higher needs in their literacy, perhaps they go up to the green level group as they get more confident and can assess off the achievement standards and be operating at a higher level. So the next one is grammar. So in grammar, this definitely needs to be linked to the learning continuum, so make sure that it's at grade expectations. So I like to do an example would be looking at a text or a book and looking at highlighting different nouns and verbs and adjectives. Maybe you're looking at punctuation and how to use question marks, so you definitely need to make sure you have a good text for this book. So reading, this is where I get leveled readers for that age group. And I will have a set of books, all the same readers, and the students read together. This is the other one where I like to put a parent helper on, and what they do is they read the book together. They will take turns at reading out loud to help build confidence inside that group, and they will then perform a book report or a book review. I make it quite a formal document and something I want them to take very seriously, and then what I do then is I actually look at publishing these book reviews inside our class newsletter, which goes home to our parents. Or the other thing I like to do, I'll be talking more about this later, is I actually have a website for our classroom and I like to publish our different reviews in there as well. But that's something that we can talk about more when it talks to parent communication and how I share what's going on inside the classroom. So that's something I use from that activity. A writing activity, so this is where they're going to be responding and creating to different documents. What I like them to do is, this is very much an independent activity, but I get them to do it within groups as well, so you can set this up as you like. But one activity would be getting a story prompter or perhaps image cards where they've just got one picture, and then they will be creating a story using a story map. So using story maps or an infographic, and they can create, if you want a copy of a story map, I will pop a link inside the group and you'll be able to access those story maps. I have a complete kit on Design by Teachers which I can show you how to do story mapping, basically from Prep right up to 6. That's available as well, and I'll put a link inside the group. But yeah, I use story mapping. So basically it's the students choose how they respond, and It's just a really, really fun and interactive way. It teaches them to be independent. A lot of students will look at story writing as this really big elephant they can't accomplish. But if you've seen my videos on story mapping, I actually reduce any stress and anxiety that students have towards their writing, and it helps to build confident writers. So getting a lot of story maps, I actually keep all the different story maps for the students, and they actually use that when we're doing our writing skills, and that we're part of scaffolding their learning. So it's like having like a mini plan for their writing. So reading comprehension, we will be doing one really fun activity I love doing is I will go through a book. When it gets to the complication, I actually sticky tape shut the rest of the book. So I will actually close or clamp off the rest of the book. So the students will read up to a certain point in the book, and then the students are to create their own ending. And I actually have a worksheet that goes with this. So it's like a story map, and they create their own ending. Now they can do this individually, in pairs, or as a whole group as well. And they would take turns at creating different endings. So they can create multiple endings. And this is something that we share at the end of the week too. I like to have a little bit of reflection time if I can on Fridays, and we can have a little look through our group rotations and see what different people have come up with. I also like doing this as a whole class activity, or also a fast finisher activity. I find that to be really fun. So that's 5 different activities inside your literacy rotations, and you are going to be encouraging students to be listening and reading, interpreting, viewing, responding, creating. So you're looking at all those skills that are inside the Australian curriculum and the learning continuum. So here is inside our teachers organisational kit. So on slide 47 here, we have the literacy stations. So this is the activity. So this is the activities like I was talking about. So having a writing prompt for writing, reading a certain book, and they takes turns and they have a review, and then we pop it in the class newsletter. This will be my grammar activity, reading comprehensions. Like I said, I sticky tape the book shut, and then over here is when I explore the spelling matrix, any homework, and I go through and spend some time with the students looking at their specific spelling words for the week. So I list down the materials here. Now I have a whole section on my ball, on my wall, and I have literacy rotations, and I have the specific rotations set up. So you'll see here, this is where I use Monday. I'd started to adjust this, so let me pop this in. So if you purchase this document, you'll be able to edit this completely to your own needs. And I like to run literacy groups. If you've had a little look in my how I set up my weekly routine, you'll see that I like to run my rotations 4 mornings a week. Now you can see here each station the students will go 4 times. Now there are 5 different rotations like we were talking about over here. What I then do is the following week, Orange Group will start on station 5, and I like to keep it really consistent. So I might always keep grammar as station 1, station 2 for reading, station 3 for writing, and station 4, station 5 is ending with me. So each week they will rotate and they miss out on one activity, but I will keep the activities quite similar, or the expectations. So each of these areas will be the same. This will help it to flow really easy, and they will need minimal assistance and to be able to successfully predict the different activities and what your expectations and the learning tasks are. They're going to have a better chance of completing those and fulfilling the expectations that you have inside your literacy group. So that's how I set this up. You can print this off and do it in handwriting. I'm a bit of I like my IT, but I'm also a bit of a hand person, so I like my physical items as well. And I have this up on the rotations. I also have a list of each students for in each group, or I will have a little card that's on their desk and it will tell them which group they're in for what. So I try to minimize the different groups that everybody has. I'll definitely have some set up so my literacy rotations will match up with my spelling and homework, and that will help minimize any confusion. Maths will be different again, and then I like to have different groups if it's coming to, when we're doing completely off topic, but it is linked to literacy, when we're doing our class talks. So when the students are split up, so for their news times, I'll have them set up in different groups for that. So I hope that is really helpful and handy, and I hope that you can find setting up the rotations using these templates to help minimize the stress. Definitely keep the flexibility and have fun. When you're doing this in your first few weeks, shorten the activities and the expectations so you can help the students walk through and have more time learning about their roles and responsibilities. The next video I'm creating is all about roles and responsibilities, and I have a free resource that I'm going to give you guys inside the group that you'll be able to use to set up and help it to flow really easy and minimize any of the time lost in setting up your literacy rotations. But I definitely encourage you to spend the first few weeks walking through each of the different activities, and if you keep them similar, it will really help the students to predict what you're expecting them to do in each of here and really develop confident learners inside your classroom.